You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Syracuse, for well over a year, was set to play in the Vegas Players Era NIL tournament. This is a brand new tournament that started last season with a lot less teams. I think it was either 4 or 8. This year it's 16, I want to say. But regardless, each participating team in this Vegas era tournament that's going to take place in the end of November is gifted $1 million just for showing up in NIL. $1 million just to show up and play a couple of basketball games. Isn't that pretty cool, right? Then, if you win the tournament, your team gets a bonus of another $1 million. Hence why this is a Players Era NIL tournament. And we now know who Syracuse will play in its first 2 games of said tournament. And odds are this was going to be a tough draw because we were kind of talking about it here on this podcast. We haven't really discussed it in a while. But the last time we talked about it, it was the fact of the ACC, shedding 2 conference games so that every team could add 2 more non-conference games to help them make the tournament or whatever. And one of the things we brought up was, hey, they're playing in this Vegas era tournament, and they're going to be playing some good teams, like it or not. The hope was that they would draw one of, I guess, the quote-unquote easier teams, but there was really no easy team that they could draw. The draw is not good. I'll be honest with you. I mean, their first 2 opponents, you got Houston on November 24th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Houston, the team that was just in the national title game. And then Kansas on November 25th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. I know Kansas kind of had a down year last season. Their down year was still a middle seed in the NCAA tournament. That's their down year. Okay, Syracuse down years have been well outside of the tournament. Kansas down year is still safely in the tournament, but you're just not as dominant as what you're normally. Both are easily preseason top 25 teams. Depending on where you look, you might find Houston as the number 1 team in the nation on Bart Torvik rankings. And Kansas is top 15 in the country. Again, Syracuse was going to play tough games in the Vegas era tournament. There's Alabama, there's Oregon, there's St. John's, there's Baylor, there's San Diego State. So many good teams. But they got Kansas and Houston. I was hoping that they would draw a UNLV maybe or a Rutgers, at least for one of these games. Now, the third opponent is technically to be determined, right? You got to see how the first 2 games shake out before you play that third game. I do believe that everyone will play a third game. I have to look more into it, but I do believe everyone will play a third game in the Vegas era tournament. It's just who's going to play in the final, who's going to play in the third place game, and what are they just the fill-in games for a schedule. Still matter. Still definitely matter for net rankings and top 25 rankings. But that's just, we don't know the third opponent yet. We have to see how Syracuse does in its first 2, as well as who Syracuse or how the other teams do in the tournament before we can figure out who they're going to play. We'll talk more about Houston and Kansas on Friday in a Poll Friday when we discuss how Syracuse is going to do. But my takeaway is, and maybe you feel differently, maybe you feel confident about it, but I don't feel confident about it. Houston and Kansas? All right. Okay. You want to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? Also, Syracuse is going to be in Vegas before the Players Era tournament because they are going to play St. Joseph's in a non-conference game. Syracuse actually nearly played St. Joseph's a year ago in the Legends Classic tournament in Brooklyn. Remember that? Syracuse, they played Texas in the first game. They lost. And myself and many others expected that St. Joseph's would lose to Texas Tech. But, there's this thing called upsets that can happen in college sports. And St. Joseph's upset Texas Tech. And so as a result, Syracuse had to play Texas Tech after going 0-1, which if they had gone 1-0, you would have thought that they would play Texas Tech in the final. But instead, they played Texas Tech. Texas plays St. Joseph's. I think Texas won that game, and they won the Legends Classic. But the two nearly played last year. I wonder if that has any sort of bearing on what happened for this season as far as scheduling the two. But they're going to play St. Joseph's before the Vegas era tournament. So they'll be out west beforehand. And you know what? If St. Joseph's can pull off an upset against Texas Tech last year, a really good Texas Tech team, probably going to be really good again with JT Toppin, then why can't Syracuse pull off an upset, right? Is it really that much to ask for just one?